We've all had that thought at some point. What would I do if I became president of my favorite football club? Maybe you'd build a proper training ground, sell that overpaid third choice keeper who hasn't played since 2010, or just bring back the old school kits, the real ones. Most of us settle for doing all that in FIFA, where we dominate Europe and turn Stoke City into Real Madrid. And you know what? It works. In our heads, we fix everything. But there was one man who took it further. This is the story of Tiago Rech, a journalist, a die-hard fan, and the man who turned Santa Cruz from a broken, bankrupt club into one of the most talked about fairy tales in modern football. Hi, I'm Max, and this is La Pausa. Here, we don't just watch football, we try to understand it. And today's story, well, it starts with one man, one club, and one empty stand. (2012) Santa Cruz. Not the famous one from Recife. No, this is Santa Cruz from Santa Cruz do Sul, a small city in the south of Brazil. They're playing Grêmio, a state giant. Most clubs would bring a few hundred traveling fans. Santa Cruz brought Tiago. Yep, just one guy. TV cameras pan to the away stand. Empty, except for a 23-year-old in a red and white jersey, fists in the air, roaring with joy after his team scores. Their only goal in a 4-1 defeat. The clip went viral. Memes exploded. Suddenly, Tiago Rech became O Torcedor Solitario, the lonely fan. Tiago was a local boy, born and raised in Santa Cruz do Sul. His grandfather supported the club, his dad did, and now so did he, even when no one else did. A year later, Tiago had moved back home. Santa Cruz had just been relegated to the second tier of the state league. The club was falling apart. A chance encounter with the club president led to a job offer. With players operating the season-long contracts, there were only 4 people employed by the club at that time. The president, manager, a supervisor, and secretary. Tiago became the 5th. Officially, he was in charge of communications. In reality, he did everything. He talked to police about match security, scouted sponsors, wrote press releases, attended board dinners, even helped with kit logistics. I would look for sponsors, I would talk to the fire brigade about security and the police, so I did much more than just communications, he says. I joked that I would end up taking the corner, heading the ball in the box, and then racing to the back to defend. One day, in a board meeting, he pitched a plan to keep the club active by joining the state cup. The directors looked at him, then said, "Cool, then you run it. Be president." At just 27, Tiago Rech became president of Santa Cruz, the club he'd loved since he was a kid. At first, everything was going just fine. New players, new sponsors, pretty good results at the games, but the 3rd month, things were going wrong. Crowds were small, winter weather killed ticket sales, debts started piling up, players needed paying, bills needed covering. Tiago used all his savings, money his parents had helped him set aside to buy an apartment. Then he maxed out his credit cards, then he asked his dad for a loan. They avoided relegation, but Tiago didn't. "I got very depressed," he later recalled. "I stayed in bed all day. I was just sad, so down. I had to see a doctor and go on medication." Eventually, his father and his doctor convinced him to step away. He returned to journalism in Porto Alegre. A fan once more, watching from the outside. 2018. Unfortunately, the club's fortunes did not improve. After seasons of struggle, they were relegated to the 3rd tier, prompting suggestions that they may have to fold. At the same time, Tiago returned home to visit family. He bumped into an old friend, a local business owner, who made a crazy but desperate plea to him that the club would close unless he came back as president. Despite all that had gone before, he decided to take up the challenge, but this time armed with lessons from the past. The first change was a strategy regarding new players. He decided to rely on local players. It really helped that our players came from the city, so the community supported us. Families would come to the game, so we had fans and an income, and we started to be able to pay off our bills. The next steps included forming partnership agreements with businesses and systematically paying off debts. Progress was slow, but followed a clear and structured strategy. It is a testament to the work done that even a global pandemic that interrupted 2 seasons was unable to halt their progress. In fact, it may even have helped the club to a degree. In September 2020, it was decided that a shortened championship season would take place, with only 10 teams participating. The absence of some of the bigger clubs enabled Santa Cruz to convince members of their squads to come and play for them. Incredibly, Santa Cruz surged to the final, and then, miraculously, they won, claiming their first official trophy in 107 years. It was incredible, fantastic, sensational. I cried, I celebrated. The games were a bit strange because there was no crowds, just a few people were watching. After the match, a photographer approached Tiago and asked him to recreate that iconic lonely shot from 2012. But Tiago proudly placed the club's first ever trophy beside him. That image once again spread across the world, symbolizing redemption, hope, and victory. Tiago Rech had transformed from internet meme to hero, but his story wasn't over yet. In 2021, Santa Cruz secured promotion to Serie B. Then, in 2023, came the ultimate challenge, a penalty shootout that would determine whether the club could finally return to the state's elite division after a decade of struggle. From the packed standards, Tiago could hardly breathe. Midfielder Mauricio stepped up calmly, eyes fixed on the goal. Tiago thought back to every sacrifice he'd made, every tear, every sleepless night. Mauricio scored, sparking sense of pure ecstasy. Tiago now celebrated among thousands of cheering fans, his dream finally fulfilled. Here was his comment after this game. "I'm grateful to every fan who never stopped believing. To my family, my father Carlos, my mother, my brothers Rodrigo and Paulo, this win is for you. Every victory we've ever achieved belongs to all of you." Tiago stepped down as president shortly after, handing leadership to the very friend who'd convinced him to return. Under Tiago's leadership, Santa Cruz managed 3 key things. They won the state championship, the club's first ever official title. They qualified for the Copa do Brasil, something they'd never done in 107 years. And they paid off their debts, finally reaching financial stability. Tiago continues to work with Santa Cruz, but is now content, much to his father's relief, to allow others to lead. His mission complete. He insists that he will continue to be there, following their games, forever a fan, even if he's the only one. Today, Tiago's story serves as a powerful reminder. In an era of football defined by money and influence, it's the pure passion, unwavering loyalty, and stubborn belief in impossible dreams that truly matter. Because sometimes, all it takes to rewrite history is one devoted fan, a little courage, and the determination never to give up. For Santa Cruz, that fan was, and always will be, Tiago Rech. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to subscribe. It really helps us out. And let us know, whose story would you like to see next? See you in the next one. This was La Pausa.